Welcome back to Morning Line, everyone. On this Tuesday, this is Butch Spiriton. He is, well, we're talking Nashville growth and tourism, president and CEO of the National Visitors and Convention Corporation. Nice to have you on this morning.
That is very nice of you to provide that introduction. I'm trying to be polite.
I'm doing that because the friendliest city. That's a subjective decision, is it not? Travel and leisure. Are they doing that because we bought some advertising in the magazine?
No, we don't advertise.
I had to ask that question.
That's a fair question.
So this is not any kind of, they just based on their polls.
We have never participated in any quid pro quo for accolades or recognition.
They just come our way, don't
they? They do. They keep coming, and it's mind-boggling.
Do you have a favorite accolade? I think friendliness is great.
Probably
hip.
A couple years ago. Well, always. Let me qualify. Always when we're named the best music destination in the country, the world.
Right. And that is true.
That we believe it's what we strive for, and probably most important. But a couple years ago, we were named on 3 different lists as one of the top destinations in the world to visit. And so when the first one came out, there weren't very many cities. I thought, that's cool. I'm still scratching my head. But then the second one came out, and it had 50 cities on it. So I'm like, well, that doesn't count. That's too many cities. We don't want to be one of 50. And then a third one came out, and maybe it had 15. So I asked our folks, I said, go look and tell me how many cities were on all 3 lists, because I didn't like the big list. And so they came back and said, only 2. And it was Nashville and the Northern Lights, so the Arctic Circle.
Holy
I went,
cow.
okay, I'll take that. That's become my favorite. And it took a continent to tie us.
That is awesome.
So that felt good.
Well, it seems like every other day something like this comes out. We just reported on that travel and leisure report earlier this week. Let's take a call from Joe. Joe, good morning.
Good morning, Nick.
Hey, Joe.
Just listening to the guest here, all this sounds great for the city of Nashville. I just wonder if it's taxpayers' money paying to get these businesses in here, or is it the business that's paying for it? And the last comment is, listening to your other program about the transportation. Nashville is about 50 years behind in transportation system. We keep growing downtown with all these businesses and the hockey and the football and soccer and all this stuff. Then the ordinary citizen is jammed up on the interstate every morning for about an hour, hour and a half, trying to getting around in Nashville. So what's his comment about transportation for all these businesses that's coming in?
Joe, it's something we were just talking about during the commercial break. Great point on that. And don't they say something like over the next, is it 20 years, they expect 1 million more people moving into this area?
Those
something
are the
in that
projections.
realm.
I think they're based on if we keep growing at the rate we are. And I don't see how that's
possible.
Remotely possible. Let me try to answer the tax question first. So we're funded through a hotel tax. So the visitors really provide our budget and our resources to sell the city. So there's nothing put on the backs of the locals unless they happen to be staying in a Nashville hotel. So I think it's a pretty fair way. And if we do well, then our budget grows, and if we don't, our budget can shrink. So we're a victim of our success or failure, and I think that's the way it ought to be.
Anyone who travels. And that's the thing. I understand. I live here, and I think that's great, the visitors. You go to any hotel anywhere in any major city, and they book you. They first of all, they'll say, okay, your room rate for tonight's $150. But then you get the bill, and then the taxes, and then there's the biggest ones, usually like an extra $20 or more. New York City, don't even get into that.
They rolled theirs back. It got so high. It started costing them.
I mean, you can rent a room for the tax in New York here in Nashville half the time. But I'm just saying, all right, that's how it works. All right, so that's where the money comes from.
And even I'll use the new convention center, the Music City Center. There is about $70 million in reserve. So it is performing better than we projected, and all of its revenue streams are visitor generated.
And you're firm in your belief that when we look back maybe 10 years from now, that the construction of this Music City Center, the bonds and the money that was spent on it will be worth it. It'll pay itself off. I mean, at this pace, it's on course for that, right?
It's ahead of pace, and so where we are reserve-wise, nobody thought we'd be at maybe before 2020.
Okay.
So that has worked, and it's driven property values up, which is the city had its largest budget increase in history, non-tax increase year. So it increased 128 million, and most of that was visitor sources.
Yeah,
so,
aren't we about to have another assessment too?
And I don't know.
They're not going to increase. I don't know if they'll.
Well, yeah, there's a reassessment.
The reassessment, and everyone's property values have gone up, so they will be seeing. Well, that's just the nature of the game.
Negative, but your property value is up.
That's true.
So you have a greater asset.
That's true. That's true.
Not all bad. Now, humorously, I would say, the people I bring in, at least half fly, and so they're not causing as much of the traffic jam as new people moving here, so I'm going to shirk some of that responsibility.
But wouldn't the business leaders like to see, to see a better transit system that eases the traffic and allows easier access for visitors?
Well, for visitors and locals.
And locals,
we've
of course.
got employees that need to get to
locals.
work. Parking has outpriced itself. Housing within the city, where the mayor's big on workforce housing, affordable housing. We've got to address all of that are growing pains. We are on record supporting mass transit. The chamber is on record. The mayor's office is on record. As we were talking, it's a regional issue. We've got to come together as a region, and it's a big issue, and the gentleman is right. We're 50 years behind. We got a lot of catching up to do, but it's doable, and there are models out there of cities that have successfully tackled it.
Yep.
But you got to be smart.
Yeah, and you're going to have to pay for it. We're going to have to find a way to pay for it. And it's not cheap these days. Let's go to Betty. Hi, Betty.
Hey, Nick.
Hey, Betty, go ahead.
Okay, well, let's just talk about it. Just touched on it a minute ago. What about all these parking lots that are charging like $18.99 for 2 hours of parking? I mean, it's just really gotten out of control. So if anybody from here in Nashville wants to go downtown, have a little night out, it's going to cost them out the weekend, And there's just got to be something that. Got to be some parking where you eat downtown.
Okay.
I think another great question, issue for the city. And first, it maybe would be important for me to say, if you're not growing, you're usually dying.
Okay.
And so, we're in a better position, and we're in a more enviable position than most cities. And we ought to feel good about that, because the alternatives are you start to look like the Northeast looked for a while.
Stagnate.
I can't agree more. Nothing infuriates me when we work, as we produce New Year's Eve and July 4th. And we lose money on the events. Now, they work on a number of levels for us. We invest in it. But when I see a parking lot put up a $40 sign on a special event, I saw some during Music Fest, it just infuriates me that, I'm a believer in do business as usual, just do more of it. Don't gouge your customers because you can. It's going to come back to haunt them or us. I think the parking lots that are being built, there's a 1,000-car garage on Church Street. The Bridgestone garage will have significant parking. When the old convention center finally gets built, there'll be about 1,800 spaces, and they're adding on to the library parking.
What about parking over there near the baseball stadium? Is that those garages?
Well, during the week it's state parking.
That's what I thought. That's all
Weekends
state.
And Sounds games you can park there. I believe it's free.
Okay.
So I believe the garages will help lower the price, but Uber and Lyft, taxis, it becomes cheaper to leave your car at home and a little bit safer. And have somebody do the driving and drop you at the door, because we were talking, we like our own cars and we like to park at the front door. So
that's if you're coming downtown, you just hit it. Uber and Lyft. I have so many people, and that way you can have a drink if you want, and you don't have to worry about how you're getting home because you don't want to drive drunk. Let's go to Jack. Hi, Jack. Are you there, Jack?
Morning. How you doing, Mr. Sparidan?
Morning. Good.
Basically, my question or comment, if you will, is about growth. We've been here for about 30 years, and I've actually lived in the city longer than that since I got back from serving in the Coast Guard. But What do you say about these developers? I won't be specific, but it's pretty obvious. The developers who come in and basically buy up all the, what they call the poor properties, and us retirees who've been here and want to stay, essentially that the home that is scheduled to be built behind us is assessed at $1,200,000, and we're just this little bitty house right in front of them that basically isn't assessed at much at all. They basically come in and jack up the prices and do these border-to-border boxes, build things like that in this area, and basically this is a very, very mixed community now. I couldn't believe it when I actually drove around and looked at what had been built versus what's already here. What do you do in a case like that? I mean, our income hasn't gone up, but our assessments are going to go up for sure.
Okay. And again, some of this stuff may be questions more for the mayor than what you deal with, but I mean, it kind of overlaps. So what would you tell him?
It does overlap, and we bear some responsibility. And I guess on the one hand, you do improve your property values, but if you're not interested in selling, it becomes an expense. Mm-hmm. And I think that is talk to your Metro Councilman. Planning and zoning and those agencies have some responsibility in that area, and I side with him. I don't like all the tall and skinnies and two houses on a lot and just come in and throw it up. I like the signs where you say build like you live here. I just think it is part of the growing pains, and it's that conversation we've got to have regularly.
When he mentioned that, and it's a little different than his situation, but like Music Row, where's the Virgin Hotel going in? Over there?
Right there at the roundabout.
Yeah, and some of the homes or buildings that were offices along that Music Row stretch have been torn down. You know about that. Some of the classic old ones there, and that's progress sometimes. Maybe the person wants to sell them, they can do that. But that's where I worry to some degree, and I don't know if you pay attention to this from your perspective when I talk about maintaining what we first saw when we moved here 25 years ago, the feel of Nashville, because some of it's being replaced and some of it's not just new things being built, but things being torn down and being built over that. So when you see some of those old classic Music Row homes getting torn down, we're going to get a nice shiny Virgin built hotel, which I'm sure will be nice and shiny, but that's not Nashville nice and shiny. I'm sorry, I've never seen Nashville as nice and shiny. I see it more, homey.
A little rustic.
Yeah, that's the word I was going to use a second ago. And we have nice and shiny, but I don't know.
Well, our pitch on Nashville, and it's kind of that. You start to have success. The success was built on authenticity and character and Southern hospitality.
The music down there.
And the creative culture through music. So you see all that and you see it work. And then to that gentleman's point and to your point, out-of-town developers see success and they run and pile on. They jump in and get their pound and they don't care because they're going to move on. I think that's where we have to be mindful and thoughtful. And it comes, at the end of the day, it's through government that we put some restrictions or requirements in place that say we care about our character and our authenticity. Because when it's gone and we look like half of the cities in this country, then everybody's going to go, what happened? I'm going to be retired.
Yep.
I'm not going to answer.
You'll be going, I know, you won't have to answer. But I totally agree with you. That's what you have to think about. So it's not like all the other cities, because that's part of our appeal right now. We'll take a break on that note. Be back with more of your calls, more of our conversation with our guest right after this. Stay with us.